Hi everyone. This is an educational series on the Opamp designs. Before we get into the Opamp designs, let us understand the genesis of the Opamp. During 1930s, a scientist named Harry Black was working in Bell Labs in the telecommunication projects. He had unique challenges. When the lines were extended for longer distance, the signal gets diminished. They sorted out this issue by using the amplifiers. Amplifiers came with certain gain. This gain was it was to set by factories, and these amplifiers were deployed in the field. Although these amplifiers sorted out this kind of issues, but it created another issue, a lot of distortion. The distortion is mainly because these active components were vulnerable to these fluctuations of temperature and power. So the scientists actually thought that these devices, any devices which are dependent on or vulnerable to these kind of parameters or the voltage fluctuations or kind of a power fluctuations, it would be difficult to get a clean or a proper signal, especially when it is used for the longer distances. So he thought, while commuting back home, he devised an idea. He thought that an amplifier by default should be built with a very, very high gain. That means an amplifier with a weak signal, if you give, by default, you should give a very, very high signal with a weak signal to a very, very high, uh, you know, amplified version of the signal. That means the gain should be very, very high by default. And later, take this output and feed back into the input with certain components. I can call this as feedback components. So thereby, you can control the intended amplitude or the intended gain of this op-amp. How did it resolve our issue, or how did it resolve the actual issue which he faced during 1930s? In the earlier example, when they used the actual amplifiers, which were made of the vacuum tubes and all kinds of stuff, these these are called active devices. They were completely and they were so vulnerable to these fluctuations. Now, this this new kind of op amp was not vulnerable to the fluctuations because the feedback is given by the circuits. These are made up of passive resistor. These are least vulnerable as compared to the active devices. That's how the problem of distortion with respect to the active amplifiers were solved. If you just look at it, what are the applications? And why do we have to use this, op amp? The design is being used in many applications like oscillators, level shifters, filters, and then the voltage source and current source, and so on and so forth. We can discuss about as we continue our journey in the design series. You may wonder actually, currently the whole world is going digital. Are we going to continue this op-amps? Of course, yes. The reason is that these are the building blocks of the analog circuits. Analog circuits are always connected to the real world. Real world means the incidents which happens or varies with the time. These op-amps are the basic building blocks so to interface with the real-time scenarios. That's why it is going to retain. Definitely, this will going to be this particular part is going to be alive for many more years to come. There are a lot of op-amps have been now developed since 1930s time. Probably not 1930s, probably we can say 1940s time. 1960, a Fairchild company, 1960 devised A basic op-amp is called MU-A709. It had a bandwidth of gain bandwidth of around 5 kilohertz in terms of kilohertz. Now it has gone gigahertz. The technological advancements have happened so far. The sizes have decreased. Fluctuations have controlled. Oscillations have controlled. Internal compensations have been introduced. The lot of improvements have been. The low power has been introduced. A lot of improvements have been done since 1960. This is going to be there, although the whole world is occupied by digital electronics. This for the analog communications, or I would say that for the analog world, in order to interface to the real world, these op amps are going to continue. Now, with these basics, actually, let us understand the design aspects and also certain basics of the op amp in the next videos. Please do subscribe so that we will give you further design aspects on this op amp. Thank you.